Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 in our chats with Emily as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are in the Johnson edition. We turn now to poem 752, So the Eyes Accost and Sunder. This is another poem about sight. It's another poem about eyes. It's another poem about looking or watching or being watched. And I think in some ways this is another poem for Emily that has some Plato standing behind it as well in our study of Plato's Republic, and especially Republic Book 7 and coming out of the light of the cave, out of the darkness of the cave into the light of the sun. Our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net. Down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily's our playlist. I'm hopeful that you've worked through our set of introductory comments as well as the preceding 751 poems. We just finished with 751, My Worthiness is All My Doubt. Now here, we'll point out, Emily seems to have been a great lover of faces, or as she will sometimes reference it, countenances. You'll remember that from our study of 750. And it does beg an interesting question. What is the most memorable face you've ever seen? And why is it that some faces you'll remember long after the fact, and most faces that you see, you forget rather quickly? She says it this way. So the eyes accost and sunder in an audience stamped occasionally forever. So may countenance entertain without addressing, countenance of one in a neighboring horizon, gone as soon as known. Notice again, Emily's eyes are scanning people. She's watching people. Can we just say this out loud for your notes? Emily is a great watcher of people. Both physically, right, she'll see them, but also I think maybe we would say spiritually or emotionally, she'll pay attention. She's always paying attention. And she's always looking into the audience, right? And some people's faces, most people's faces, are soon forgotten. Notice the way she says it, stamped, occasionally, forever. In other words, there's only a handful of people that she says, I'll remember their face forever. It's possible some have suggested she's talking about the face of Sue, that maybe she's, from the moment she saw Sue's face, it was one that forever would be stamped for her. So may countenance, again, countenance takes us back to our study of poem 750 by the, but transactions is assisted by no countenance. But so may countenance entertain without addressing. In other words, there's people, all I got to do, she says, is look at their face. I don't need to talk with them. There are things I know about them simply because of their face. Countenance, she says, of one. Now, notice capitalized one. Is she speaking here about God? Is she talking about some other person? In a neighboring horizon, gone as soon as known. Now, some scholars have pointed out that lines 3-4 of poem 679 come back here at the end of this poem. You guys can run that one to ground. We did that study of poem 679. Let's ask now, what point is she making here? I think her point is that some people's faces are remarkably memorable. You can't so easily let them go. You pay attention to them long after the fact. And you're not always certain why. You know what I'm saying? It's not always clear why. Well, I love the word choice here. For example, stamped, occasionally, forever, right? At 3A, reading a set of lines like this reminds me of Emily's contemporary Walt Whitman. You'll remember in Song of the Open Road, we've given full lectures on all poems in Deathbed edition of Leaves of Grass. Do you guys remember this set of lines from Song of the Open Road, passage 6? And again, amazing. These are contemporaries who never met each other. And Whitman wrote it this way. Now, if 1,000 perfect men were to appear, it would not amaze me. Now, if 1,000 beautiful forms of women appeared, it would not astonish me. Now I see the secret of the making of the best persons. It is to grow in the open air and to eat and sleep with the earth. Here, a great personal deed has room. Such a deed seizes upon the hearts of the whole race of men. Its effusion of strength and will overwhelms law and mocks all authority and all argument against it. Here is the test of wisdom. Wisdom is not finally tested in schools. Wisdom cannot be passed from one having it to another not having it. Wisdom is of the soul, is not susceptible of proof, is its own proof, applies to all stages and objects and qualities, and is content, is the certainty of the reality and immortality of things and the excellence of things. Something there is in the flow to the sight of things that provokes it out of the soul. Now I re-examine philosophies and religions. They may prove well in lecture rooms, yet not prove at all under the spacious clouds and along the landscape and flowing currents. Here is realization. Here is a man tallied. He realizes here what he has in him. The past, the future, majesty, love. If they are vacant of you, you are vacant of them. Only the kernel of every object nourishes. Where is he who tears off the husks for you and me? Where is he that undergoes stratagems and envelopes for you and me? Here is adhesiveness. It is not previously fashioned. It is apropos. Do you know what it is as you pass to be loved by strangers? Do you know the talk of those turning eyeballs? This idea of being watched and watching. Whitman was a great watcher, as of course is Emily. Finally, 3A. To own a poem like this, what's your favorite face you've ever looked at? Maybe we would say, other than your own. Of all the faces you've ever seen in this world, what's the one that you most enjoy looking at? And why? Thank you.